I'm gonna remember that.
Yeah, we're just sitting in the back row.
I didn't see it there.
Just for general, something that had a couple requests, just in two microphones.
Especially.
They gave me very specific. It's a pretty specific.
I'm sure they have no problem.
No, actually, there's some ones that say they can't hear.
Seriously? All of us, or?
They say they can't hear you when you look at the other. And now you need that.
No number drops.
That's why they don't hear it.
Except when it's on. Yeah, Jay. Oh, no.
Just missed it so much.
This meeting that we're starting, this meeting of the Livingston City Commission is called to order, please. May we have roll call?
Chairperson Hoagland?
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz?
Present.
Commissioner Friedman?
Here.
Commissioner Sandberg? Here. Commissioner Maybe?
Here.
We will now have a moment of silence. Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we start our meeting tonight, we have a couple things to discuss. And first thing is, because of the length of our meeting, we are going to limit public comment to 4 minutes. We have multiple items, including 5 resolutions to work through tonight. And just forgot our second part. Oh, sorry. The second issue is action item D, the letter of support regarding the proposed BLM project. We are tabling for future discussion because the Interior Department has put the leases on hold at this time, so that we will still continue in writing our letter and recommending as a commission our opinion on the leases and the selling of the leases. But because it is at this stage with the Interior Department on hold, we are also going to put our letter on hold just for time's sake. But like I said, it will be in the future. So Tonight we have 2 consent items. Do we have any commissioners who want to pull a consent item? Okay. Could I have a motion by the commission on consent items A and B?
I make a motion that we pass consent items A and B.
Do you have a second?
second.
We have a motion by Friedman, a second by Maybe. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Hoagland,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Friedman,
Four.
Commissioner Sandberg, Commissioner Maybe.
4.
Motion passes. Tonight we have no proclamations and 1 scheduled public comment. Our scheduled public comment is Planning Board Representative Adam Stern is here to provide an update regarding developing land use policies for the large format retail establishments, revising parkland dedication requirements, obtaining funding for a new growth policy, and filling the open seat of the planning board. Adam.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're actually only going to discuss 2 of those items tonight. The parkland dedication we'll discuss as policy at the April 3rd meeting, and then the filling the open seat is just a process. And really, we'll be brief. We're just going to update the city council on 2 things that are going on at the planning board. I think we have Peter and Vicky from the planning board. You guys want to come up and discuss it? Ms. Blakely? And so the first thing, let's see, you have one of the items, one of the reports in your agenda package. So here's, but there's 2 items, so here's the report on each. Here's the growth policy funding. Oh, thank you, Lisa. And then here's the report on large format. Here you go. Thank you.
The planning board is concerned because our growth policy has not been updated as it should every 5 years. Correct? And the last time we updated it, we did it within our committee. And at this point, we feel there's enough changes coming down the road and we really need professional help. So we're asking you to help us to find a way to fund an outside group to come in and help us gather public input and decide how to develop our growth policy so that it is a substantial and well thought out and inclusive growth policy that has a lot of public input. I believe that the planning board is not qualified to do this type of long-reaching study. It's fine to update it every once or twice as we go down the road, but we really are to a juncture where we need substantial input from the community and someone who knows what they're doing with us. So as you move through your budget considerations, we would hope that you would make some funding available for that as we move forward. And then the second thing.
So on that, yeah, we need, so a professional growth policy, you know, is prepared by a professional consulting firm, an engineering firm, or I guess it doesn't have to be engineering. And the cost is like $40,000 to $50,000. And it's a pretty important document, and Livingston needs an updated professional growth policy. And so we're here to request, well, you know, funding. We want the city commission to allocate funding in this coming year's budget to try to get the funds for that growth policy in conjunction with grant funding. That's spelled out in the memo.
CDBG usually has funds for this type of work.
Do you want to ask questions based on each section
Yeah, my question's
on this one?
So, the grant opportunity, so that's community development block grant. Do you know what the size of those can range or how competitive they are,
Probably Jim would be better, Jim Woodhall would be better able to speak to that.
I believe the maximum grant amount is 50,000. But it requires a one-third match.
and what's their funding cycle? Do you know?
Normally, it's July is when they start, but this year was delayed due to the federal budget. So as far as I know, it is not open yet.
Okay. And are there other sources that you know of, Vicki?
I don't.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission?
And then our second topic is we would like to explore the big box, large format retail and open that up to the public so that we can get public input into what our city citizens feel about that. We know there are certain factions, and it was discussed 10 years ago, I believe, right before 2007. But then the housing market fell apart and we didn't discuss it anymore. But now we're right back at that place where it becomes an issue that we may have to deal with. And we just like to see it discussed before we're actually having to deal with it. Yes.
So we have on the planning board identified a need for Livingston to have land use policies for large format retail establishments, really large stores. There's no policies in place right now in Livingston, and there should be a few. So on the planning board, and there's been a few events that have led us to believe we need to get these policies in place now before there's an issue. And so on the planning board, we've done some studies where we've looked at what other municipalities have done, what sort of tools are available, and now we're ready to start drafting actual policies for Livingston. But we want to do that with public input. And also, we work for the city council, we work for you. And so we're coming here to let you know that this is something we're looking at. We want to engage in public input, or we want to acquire public input from the council and from everybody else. And then at the end of this process, we're going to make a policy recommendation. Maybe the recommendation is to do nothing, or maybe it's some of those tools, which tools are appropriate for Livingston based on what we hear from the public. And at the end, we're going to come to you with a recommendation and for land use policies on these large format retail establishments. So getting this public input is the first step in that. And you know, we're here doing this on your behalf, and we want you to be aware of what's going
on. Just a procedural question for the planning board then. So we have a couple of representatives here who are focusing on a couple of issues here, which are important issues. I'm not arguing with that, but with these subgroups that work for the commission, do we provide guidance of what we think are the important topics to the commission that we want these entities to be reviewing? So, or is that purview entirely up to each commission to determine what they think should be the hot topics that the city is working on?
Adam raised his hand. What was the answer?
Yes, on both counts. So these committees, these specialist committees, the planning board, the urban renewal agency, the tree board, parks and trails committee, these specialist committees of citizens who specialize, just looking at that one issue. These are all advisory committees for the city council. And so those bodies can make a set of priorities and priorities that they think are important and send that up to the council. They can study issues and make recommendations to the council. And if the council has an issue before it and they'd like some study, the council can send that issue back to a committee, for additional study. So it goes both ways. We're here to help you. So if you want something investigated for land use or parks and trails, send it to the committee, they'll study it and send you a recommendation. If the committee finds something important that they believe as a whole committee is important, they might study and bring it to the council. And then of course, the planning board is a great example. We provide our recommendations to you based on land use planning considerations, and that's it. And then it's up to you to take that recommendation and combine it with the economics and the administration and the politics and your constituency and all those other factors, and then you guys approve the legislation that's right for the whole community. So we study the issue from a technical standpoint and then give you the recommendation. And the guidance goes both ways.
So if I'm hearing this correctly, Chairwoman, so the subcommittees can determine what issues they think are most important without presenting to the commission, hey, we think it's important to do this. Do we have your support to pursue it?
Yes, and that I believe from having worked within the planning board that you base it on the documents that and the ordinances and the laws that we work around. So being in front of issues such as in this case, I think is important because it's taking what we already know cities deal with through our growth policy, whatever, and front loading it. That's how I see it. But I do like that analogy or the comparison of it being back and forth because multiple times commissioners or we have as a commission brought things to like parks and trails. What are your ideas on this? Maybe as individuals and sometimes as an entity.
Madam Chair. Also, certain things like the growth policy that have to be done. We can get that going and run those meetings and bring that to you.
Yeah, I'm not debating the material. I'm just trying to understand the process of if it's a subcommittee of the commission, should we be determining what are our priorities that we want the planning board to be working on, and then set them to task to review the subjects that are of pressing issue that we, the commission, finds. That's just my question.
Well, just with this particular instance, I think they're doing that for us. I think they're actually, bringing for us that they'd like to develop a land use policy for large format retail establishments. So they've identified something that we haven't directed them to do. But it sounds like it's up to us to say, yeah, let's look into this. So I guess that's.
Yeah, and I think, I guess I was just hearing from Adam that it sounds like they've spent quite a bit of time already at the meetings to discuss this. So I'm just stating, before that much time goes into it, should we have priorities set before there are, say, 4 meetings where they do their research and on a topic that is of interest to them prior to them gaining our approval. And again, I'm not debating the issues themselves. I'm just trying to understand the protocol.
Do you think if we had more updates from the boards and that back and forth conversation during updates, that would help that process?
I just didn't know if maybe in our own goal setting each year, if we sat down and say, hey, these are, we've just finished our strategic planning as a city. So we have that. We have a little bit of work left to do that Mike's working on scheduling for us. But maybe it's part of our goal setting each year that, hey, these are the issues we want the planning board to look at. These are the issues we want Parks and Trails to look at. So it's all augmented and supporting each other based on our goals for the year.
And I think you hit really the crux of the issue is when we finish the strategic plan, those priorities should be laid out for all the subcommittees. So we have goals, we can define the goals, then I'll break those down into the tasks and Whatever those are, we'll break those down into, and some of those will involve the individual subcommittees. So that will be your guidance to all the subcommittees. Okay, these are the priorities for the city for the next 3 to 5 years. And if they have a piece of those, they should know, okay, we need to work on that. That is the discretion of the commission. So that would be their priority, would be your priorities. Now, if they do identify other things that fit within the values and the mission and the vision that you set forth, then they should also bring those things forward, because that's why we do the mission vision values. They can look at those and say, hey, this is what the commission holds important. And so this fits within that. So you give them the overarching guidance with the mission, vision, values, and then the specific guidance will come out of the goals, the tasks, and the other one that I can't remember. So, but that's really ideally, if those are 3 to 5 years goals, like we're supposed to be doing the strategic plan, that will inform all the subcommittees what the 3 to 5 year goals are for the commission, and then they can figure out how to dovetail into those goals and what their pieces are. Ideally, that would be how it works.
As we took advantage of MSU extension with the strategic planning, they also have a course on the growth policy. And I'm wondering if there's no cost to that really. And I've seen presentations of it on the state level, and it's pretty good stuff. So it might be something we could explore.
Peter?
I'm Peter Fox, county representative to the city planning board. I chair the county planning board. I didn't know how many of us would be here. I just want to say one thing about the growth policy. I think you've got an opportunity here to take advantage of the just completed county growth policy, because they'll dovetail together. Also, I'd like to give you a personal perspective. I agreed to be the county representative. Increased communication between the two planning boards that we've done that. When I joined the board, the planning board, Darrell, Vicky, Adam, and others, this group was laboring mightily in the evenings to come up with the content for their board policy. It was a Herculean task, progress that has been made. The last growth policy is more than 15 years in our rear view mirror. In truth, the update that we gave to the growth policy, I think we all agree, is what my grandmother used to call a lick in the box. We did the very best we could with the amount of time and energy that we had to put forward something that would be a placeholder until we could come up with a more robust growth policy. And certainly it's interesting to me that we had so many city residents coming to the county growth policy public hearings and offering comments about the city. There's a pent up desire of people to do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
It's really up to you as a commission if you want to provide them more direction. So they briefed you on what their priorities are right now, which way they're headed. If that meets your needs, if that meets your desires, then you don't have to do anything, and they'll continue to push forward and bring the recommendations once they've done the research and have actual recommendations for you. If that's not the direction you're interested in, then we would put it on an agenda, you could discuss it, and you could then give them different direction.
So with the growth policy, there is no direction for it, except the recommendations. And I know that you are in the midst of the budgetary process. Is this something that was on your radar?
It's something we're looking at. We're absolutely looking at the CDGB grant. It's probably not feasible without the grant. I don't think there's an extra $50,000 in the general fund. But we are absolutely looking. We're waiting for it to open still. Once it opens, we'll apply.
Okay.
I think we would be fairly competitive, but there's no guarantee.
Thank you.
Okay. Tonight we also have a public hearing. So now we're going to open up the public hearing and discuss ordinance number 2067. This public hearing is open. At this time, we open it for commissioner comments. And that is, I should actually read the ordinance, sorry. An ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, amending section 8-5 of the Livingston Municipal Code entitled Daily Account of Funding or Funds Collected, Monthly Report, Contents, and specifically amending the procedures, content, and time of the City Court Monthly Report. This public hearing is open. First, do we have any public comment? Do we have any commissioner comment? Quinn,
Is this our second reading on this?
this is our second reading.
Second and
Thank
final.
you for, yep, second and final reading.
Just one clarification.
Thank you for clarifying. Any commissioner comments? This hearing is closed. Roll call, please.
Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have a motion. It's a lot on this
I
agenda.
make a motion to approve ordinance number 2067.
Do you have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Schwartz and a second by Friedman. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Vogler,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Friedman,
Four.
Commissioner Sandberg, for Commissioner Maybe.
Yes.
Motion passes. We have a second ordinance tonight, which is a
Hi, Darrell. I have a question. I'm a little confused. I'm curious if there was like a public comment on the public comment that Adam gave, or if that
no,
is not
because-
open.
good question. That is scheduled public comment, so that is a presentation
Okay.
and commissioner discussion.
Okay.
And yes, and you're welcome to talk about what he referred to or the board referred to at the end during your public comment.
Okay. Thank you.
Just a part of the process. Second ordinance tonight, this is the first reading of the ordinance. And this is ordinance number 2068. An ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, establishing a civil offense of interfering with the street sweeper and establishing a penalty. Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am going to ask you actually to amend this one. There's a couple misprints in this ordinance that we'd like to correct. You don't have to do it this evening because it's the first reading, but it will change before the next reading. So this changes our current ordinances on tickets for parking where the street sweeper is going. The main changes are hours of operation and the ability to levy a penalty. The hour of operations in your packet reflects 2 a.m. to 11 p.m. So that was a misprint. It should be 4:30 to 4:30. So it's a 12-hour period of time from 4:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Now, while it is a 12-hour block of time, we're not going to ticket you if the street sweeper's not coming through that street. And obviously, you can see where the street sweeper's gone for the day. So if it's gone through your street already, feel free to park. We're not going to ticket you just because it's between that time. But if you are parked on one of the streets that's noticed for that day, between those hours and the street sweeper is trying to get through, then you will be ticketed. Additionally, the current code lists the maximum penalty at $20. This code changes that to $100. But that does give the code enforcement officer flexibility if it's repeat offenders or people, doing it over and over, or it's egregious 18 or something. The code enforcement officer has the flexibility to apply whatever penalty he wishes. At that point, if the resident wants to appeal it, to fight and take it to court, then the judge will decide the final amount of the penalty, but the maximum, so it would be no more than $100, and would not start out at $100.
I will open it to public comment. Any public comment on ordinance number 2067, 2068? Please state your name and address and sign your.
I say this so much that she knows my
Yeah,
I want to commend the city at taking a look at street sweeping and penalties for not parking. But I want to also ask, what seasons of the year is this going to actually take place? Because from my experience of having lived downtown in Livingston for the last 18 years, been a resident downtown, we come through in the wintertime and we dump sand on our beautiful downtown streets. And then we never sweep it up until spring. And there are plenty of days in which it's warm enough for a street sweeper to go through our downtown streets and sweep our streets in the winter as well as the summer. And I would recommend that the city commission take a serious look at doing that, because it looks really tacky about the time it was 45 degrees downtown and we have sand everywhere and it looks really bad. Just wanted to make a, so is this just a specific season, or can we consider doing it year round?
In the ordinance, Tricia, it is during the months of May, June, July, and August.
Is there any chance that this ordinance can take a serious look at adding winter months to it? I mean, I'm asking the city commission to please consider that. This is a public hearing, so I just want to mention that.
Mr. Curtis, I know in the past we've discussed budget and the budget of street sweeping and their relationship to snow removal, and that it's often the same people. Would that be the biggest impact or the biggest factor in this?
That would be a factor also, especially in April, you're still gonna get the snowstorms, so you're gonna be fighting with each other with the sand trucks and the street sweepers. You're gonna be dumping the sand, sweeping back, and then the next snowstorm dumping it again. And that's where the cost comes into.
Well, my comment is I'd like for the city to please take a serious look at a few times in the winter time, getting that sand that you dump all over the streets up. Especially now that we're going to be redoing our downtown streets and they're going to be so pretty and then they just look so tacky. Thank you.
Thank you. Commission comments.
There's no public comment.
One more public comment. Hi, James, welcome.
Thank you very much. James Bennett, 608 Comet, Livingston. I'm glad to see that the commission's getting this done and establishing some type of enforcement. What I'm wondering about is there's been times, especially early in the season, where the street sweeper comes through the community or through the neighborhoods kind of off schedule. So what kind of adjustment or compensation would occur for a citizen where they're scheduled for Wednesday and they come through on Thursday? Anything along those lines that we can do?
So in the packet is the schedule for the street sweeping. If we're off schedule, we won't ticket cars on that day unless it's been well noticed ahead of time. Unless either flyers have been sent out that the schedule's going to change, or the signs are posted with plenty of time for people to know that it's coming through that day. We won't switch days and then hand out tickets.
You mean like as a way to increase revenue?
Right. So if it's not your day, we'll do what we can, and if we'll notice and get as many people off the streets as we can, if there's a reason the street sweeper breaks and we need to go back or something like that. But in general, if it's not your day, we probably will not enforce any significant parking violations on that day.
That sounds good. The second question is, I know that we all get the street map in our water bill, which is good. Is there going to be some other form of reinforcement of that? Are we going to put out signs or have some type of notice on those streets?
We're still going to have the signs out, the regular signs, the town board signs that go out as well. Go and check out the new city website that just went live. We'll get the street sweeping map out on that as well prior to the street sweeping season.
Right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Hi, Don Platic, 229 South Yellowstone. Was there a minimum penalty?
No, there's no minimum.
No minimum, because if it was like that $20 one, it's almost not a deterrent for people, so we still don't get our streets swept. So I just wanted to see if there was a minimum. And if you have a building permit and there's dumpsters, whatever out there, how's the city going to know, I can't ticket this because they've got a permit, whatever.
But obviously, if we have a permit, that's why the code enforcement officer will work with building and planning closely, and they'll know where the permits are.
Okay. You mentioned the city website. I'll have to notice, make a comment on a tablet that was like a 12-inch tablet. It would not line up properly. It was an Android. So just FYI, maybe whoever's doing your website, have them look at,
How many days ago?
last night, I think.
Okay, we'll check it out, because it's brand new, so there might still be some glitches in it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comment? Commissioner comments? Sarah?
I just want to clarify, so the fee can be anywhere between 20 and 100? And that's just a
Yes, that practically is gonna be the range. Yeah,
Or
0 is
zero.
actually the limit. I mean, you could give a ticket for $0, that probably we won't do it, but,
okay.
but really,
Assuming there'll be some sort of criteria provided to the code enforcement, so it's,
there will be, and we'll let that actually, the code enforcement figure out what that is, because we really want it to be flexible enough to encourage people not to be parking on the streets, but we don't need to be draconian for people that just made a mistake. So, obviously repeat offenders, you're gonna get the higher end of that range, and, first-time offenders, maybe not so much.
thank you.
Any other commission comment? One of the things that has been brought to me in the past is the concern of if someone parks in front of your house and they get ticketed, you're still not getting your street swept. So do you have any ideas or solutions for that?
Really, the only solution would be to tow every car that wasn't, and that's not feasible. Right. We don't have that much capacity in our tow trucks. So really that's, hopefully it's not your neighbors. And if it's, the real problem is gonna be probably tourists or people that are visiting. So it's just gonna take some good neighborly rounding up and making sure that everyone knows they can't park there. Because there's not really an option to come back and hit a spot or two with the schedule one. So hopefully this ordinance will be enough to discourage people with that happen very often.
Thank you. We're gonna move on to our resolutions. We have 5 resolutions tonight. We don't read the motion first. We have 5 resolutions tonight.
What do you say? We still need capacity as first reading.
Right. Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion on ordinance number 2068?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2068.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Schwartz and a second by Friedman. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Holden,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
4.
Commissioner Friedman,
4.
Commissioner Sandberg, Commissioner Maybe,
Yes.
Motion passes. We have 5 resolutions tonight. Resolution A, number 4781, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, authorizing the city manager to sign agreement with the Montana Historic Preservation Office for grants for local historic preservation for period April 1, 2018 to March 31st, 2019. Mike?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an annual resolution that comes before you. This is a grant from the state for the Historic Preservation Officer, in which case we combined with our building and planning officer, so Jim Woodwall is the recipient of this. It goes to offset some of the costs of his salary that goes towards his time to attend the Historic Preservation Committee meetings and to do the historic preservation walkthroughs downtown. There is a match with this one, I believe. Is there a match with this one? Oh, no, this one might not have. So it is $5,500, and it goes directly to salaries in the planning department.
Thank you. Any public comment? Any commission comment? I do have one question. How long have we had this grant?
1989.
89.
Every year since 1980.
Great. Any other questions? Do I have a motion from the commission?
Make a motion we pass resolution 4781.
Second? No, second. We have a motion by Friedman and a second by Maybe. Roll call. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Copeland,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Friedman,
Four.
Commissioner Sandberg, 4, Commissioner Maybe,
Yes.
Roll call, motion passes. Our second resolution is number 4782, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, requesting distribution of bridge and road safety and accountability program funds. Rick Carter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is, you're all familiar with the standard gas tax that the state provides on a yearly basis. In the last legislative session, they passed an increase to the gas tax. It requires this application process, which is a little bit new. So this is the additional funding from what they call the BARSA, the Bridge and Road Safety and Accountability Program. It is funding in the amount of $54,865.25, and there will be a 5% match that's required for the city, which will take out of different street funds. So this is basically additional gas tax that will come in. This is just the application process to the state to get our share of that funding.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment? Any commissioner comment? On resolution number 4782? Sarah?
I'd just say for those in attendance knowledge, so we use those funds then to augment the funding of our street projects downtown, correct?
That's great. All the gas tax funds have to go directly to streets and roads projects.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have a motion from the commission on resolution number 4782?
Make a motion that we pass resolution 4782.
Second?
Also.
We have a motion by Friedman and a second by Maiden. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Copeland,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Friedman,
Four.
Commissioner Sandberg, 4, Commissioner Maybe,
Yes.
Motion passes. Our next resolution is resolution number 4783, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, authorizing the city manager to sign an agreement with Park County to establish a chapter in the city-county compact, creating a planning board subcommittee. Mr. Curtis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This has come before the commission before, just as more of just a discussion item at the time. We didn't take any action. The way we've looked at implementing this is to create a compact chapter for the city-county compact that outlines the responsibilities of each board. It doesn't have a specific list of areas or specific topics that we want them to go out and research. Again, when we complete our strategic plan combined with the county's strategic plan should provide that guidance to this board, specifically all the projects that are coming before. Some of the unique aspects of this board, it will be city-county membership. There'll be 2 county members, 2 city members, and then Mr. Fox will be the chair as both the city and a county member, so it's kind of a unique position. One of the concerns about the committee was we don't want one entity to be able to outvote the other entity, and that recommendation can constantly be coming up. So we've done a few things. We've limited it to the same recommendation has to go to both planning boards. So whatever recommendation comes out of the planning committee will go both to the city planning board and go to the county planning board. It'll be the exact same recommendation. However, if there are 2 members of the board that feel that that is the wrong decision, they're allowed to include a minority report that will be attached as part of the report out to the committees. So that way, if both city members believe that that's a bad idea for the city, then that minority report will be attached and will go up to the city planning board with their comments. Same thing for the county. If for some reason one city and one county member decided that it was the wrong thing to put forward, they could also write a minority report and send it up as part of the official package. So it's not a separate document, it would be attached to the report that comes up to the committee. So it'd all be included in one package, both the recommendation from the committee itself and a minority report if it existed. So what this does do, however, if there's one person that doesn't believe it's correct, they're not going to be able to do a minority report. And that's just to make sure the process keeps moving. So at least two have to agree that this is a wrong decision for the minority report to be kind of a Supreme Court kind of model.
So then, the ultimate decision then still lies with each representative commission, because the planning boards then, goes to the planning board. If they approve it, then it still comes to the, commission for final approval.
That's correct. So it could come up to the city commission and not the county commission, or it could come up to the county commission and not the city commission. It could come up to neither or both. And then the final say is still with the commissions as the elected bodies, as it should be. The one thing we did include was there will be reports required, even if they take no action. So even if they have no recommendation that they want to pass up, they still will have to send a report to both planning boards on what they have been considering. So I think, but they will be required to provide reports on what they are doing, even if they don't come up with recommendations.
Thank you.
Any public comment?
I would just like to say that this
Don't
notion,
forget to state your name and address.
Peter Fox, 157 Falls Creek Road. I would just like to say that this idea emerged from both planning boards, from the members who kind of simultaneously said, why can't we do more? Why can't we talk more? Why can't we cooperate more? And so it was really relatively easy to say, what if we do something like this? And I want to emphasize that the 5 people that are willing to serve on this subcommittee are 5 people who are willing to do more than their appointments to the planning boards. These are people that are interested in our community, the well-being of our community, and really have a very cooperative attitude toward this work, and we want to do a good job for both the city and the county governments. Thank you.
Peter, I have a question. So as far as the members on this committee,
Yes.
How did each board nominate or choose the committee members?
There was volunteering. People realized that there would be some extra time. We don't have a set schedule. It might be once a month, hard to say. Maybe there might be an occasion where it's twice a month. But these are people who said, I'm willing to commit the time. Some people couldn't, and fortunately there were people who said, this is so important that we're going to commit the extra time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other commission comments or community comments? Come on.
Sure. James Smith, 608 Comment, Livingston. I'm just wondering, is this still going to be a subcommittee that is responsible to the city commission? And other members of subcommittees are usually appointed by the commission.
This committee is recommended from their designated planning board, and then they recommend to the planning boards, county or city, and then bring it to us. Does that make sense, James?
Yeah, so what authority are they being established by?
They are being established by an interlocal agreement. So the commissions are establishing them. And that's probably what I should have pointed out first. You're the first commission to see this. The county commission hasn't seen it yet. So if you approve it, it will go to the county for their approval. So it is, the organization is being established by interlocal agreements, so it's being established by the commissions. However, they don't report directly to the commission, and they're not advisory group to the commission. It's an advisory group to the 2 separate planning boards. So the commission still has authority over the planning boards, and that's why this subcommittee has no authority to make any decisions, only recommendations. And in reality, they're only making recommendations to a advisory board. So they're making recommendations to a board that will make recommendations to the commission. So the commission is ultimately responsible, both commissions are ultimately responsible for the decisions, but the board members will be decided by the individual planning boards. So that's been delegated down to the planning boards, and then
they come out of their membership.
right. So the commission members have already appointed the planning board, and those those are the pool that they can select. So they've already been appointed by the commission. Right.
Okay, so non-decision making board recommends to a non-decision-making board, moves up to the decision-making bodies. Okay, thank you very much.
Tricia Grabo, 204 East Calendar Street. I have just a quick question about the role of the growth policies, the county growth policy and the city growth policy. I remember, those of us remember back to the donut days, there was almost a separate growth policy for the donut area, which this basically is. I just wondering how those differing growth policies actually work in this situation.
With this committee. I'm not
With this
sure.
committee, yeah.
So this, I look at this committee, and maybe I'm wrong, but I look at it as a working part of a bigger committee. So it's like a working committee. So they are doing a lot of the work. Peter, am I right? That get informational gathering that will then bring that information to the board. So as far as growth policies, they're still separate because our growth policy will be city and theirs will be county, but this committee is working to see how they can,
I having been through this, probably 10 years ago, it could be that down the road, there may be a growth policy that actually deals with specifically with the donut area as well, which is an agreed upon kind of growth policy. Just wanted to bring that up. The other thing is I just welcome this so much. When I was on the commission, we really seriously wanted to look at a circumferential road connecting another mile of road, and we could have a circumferential road around the north side of town, which would be very helpful if this allows for us to take a serious look at something like that, as well as the Bozeman Trail, which is an 8-mile circular trail around the north side of town. So this is a vehicle by which some of these things that really need a serious look allows us to really talk to each other about. So I commend the commission on this. Thank you.
any other public comment? Any other commission comments? Do we have a motion on resolution number 4783?
Make a motion to pass resolution 4783.
Second?
I'll second.
We have a motion by Friedman and a second by Schwartz. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Hopeland,
Yes?
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Friedman,
Four.
Commissioner Sandberg,
Or
Commissioner Levy.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next is resolution number 4784, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, authorizing the city manager to sign a general service agreement with COP Construction LLC. Mr. Carnes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is the resolution that allows us to sign a contract with contractor for the downtown streets project. We brought the financials before you in the last meeting. This is our standard general services agreement. I don't think there's anything particular on this one that's out of the norm with the other ones. I will again point your attention to, as the last one say, that it does give the city manager the authority to execute the agreement to include the use of the budgeted contingency funds for this project.
Can you explain that?
Sure. So as probably taking the wastewater treatment plant as the best example, we know we have $1 million contingency on that one, which I do not have the authority to execute because it's $1 million. These will be a lot smaller. And what that does is it doesn't require us to bring the change orders before the commission of the smaller nature. So as the project goes along, we can be a little faster, a little more responsive to the contractor, and hopefully keep the project on schedule because we know that time is sensitive in the downtown. So we will be a little more nimble as an administration if we do use those funds. Obviously, there's still a limit that you put on it, which is on page, what is the number of this one? The total limit doesn't change, so that's still the total budget for the project. However, it just gives us flexibility in how we execute those funds. There, $2,329,028.90.
Thank you very much. Any public comment?
Good evening. Federico Maltesta, 15 Buffalo Jump Road. I understand that as part of this resolution, there is an item which configures the entire Main Street as one way. Is that correct? No?
No, this is an agreement that we're with the construction company. So this has nothing to do with the one-way.
Okay.
This is just the agreement. So if you have a comment on that, that would be during public comment at the end.
Okay.
Any other public comment? Commissioner comments? Sarah?
Mr. Cardos, can you clarify, is it like a standard 10% contingency? Okay. Can I request that we have reports if we go into contingency?
Sure.
Do I need to add that to a motion?
Probably for procedural sake, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Do we have a motion from the commission on resolution number 4784?
I make a motion to pass resolution 4784.
Do we have to have the
If you want to
amendment
amend
in
it,
the first?
you don't have to, you can make the original motion, the second, and you can make a motion to amend. However you want to do it.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion by Friedman and a second by Maybe. So we have to do roll call and then go back in a minute.
No, you can do commissioner comment. At that point, you can make another motion. You can have up to 3 motions at one time.
So do we have commissioner comments?
So I'd like to amend the motion to include financial reporting to the commission with the change orders as notification.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have an amendment to the motion by Sanford and a second by, I'm not sure. Which one of you got that? Maybe? So we're voting on the amended.
Yes.
So public comment on the amended motion. Any last commissioner comments? Roll call, please.
Chairperson Copeland,
Yes?
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Friedman,
Four.
Commissioner Sandberg, Commissioner Maybe,
Yes.
Motion passes. Our last resolution tonight is number 4785. It's a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, authorizing the city manager to sign a general service agreement with Evergreen Skate Parks LLC. Mr. Hargis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is the skate park construction agreement with Evergreen. As we briefed you last commission meeting, the bid that we received from Evergreen was $306,000. To give you the current financials for the skate park, their current cash on hand balance is $243,446.29. Additionally, they have pledge letters for the amount of $20,000, which brings their cash on hand and pledge total to $263,446.29. So they're approximately $40,000 short of the required amount. That leaves us in a position where we have to make a decision tonight on how we go forward. Obviously, the bid for Evergreen is only good for 60 days. If we go beyond that, we'll have to rebid the project. Obviously, there's risks associated with rebidding, and first you have to come up with the money for the rebid. Second, even if you raise the total amount, once you rebid it, the amount may be more depending on the cost of materials or labor as we get later in the year. And the later we go in the year, the less likely we'll finish it in this construction season. So that leaves 3 options that I'm providing the commission for your consideration. First option is if we want to set aside the general service agreement until the full amount is collected. We could hope that they get the full $306,000. And how many days do we have left, Shane? Do you know off the top of your head?
March 27th is
So
when that expires.
Yeah, so we have until March 27th, so basically 3 weeks. And if we don't reach that amount in that time, the bid will expire, and then we'll have to start it over at that point. Option 2 is we could sign a general services agreement for a lesser amount. This is not an option that I would recommend or particularly like. What that is going to amount to is basically bidding only part of the completion of the skate park. And if the funding isn't received in the interim, then we would have a partially completed skate park, which I don't recommend for anyone. The last one is going to take, I'll call it the creative solution. And it's going to take some assumptions by the commission about what decisions you're going to make in the future. And that's because it's a time feature of it. We don't have time to go through the entire process. So if you follow along on this one, the skate park is in the TIF, so it's in the tax increment financing zone. We have used TIF funds in the past for similar projects. The basketball court at the middle school, I believe, is probably the closest analogy that we use at this point. We are in the near future going to hear from the URA on their recommendations for bonding. I happen to know that their recommendation is going to be a 15-year bond for the amount of the project. So with that in mind, we could add the $40,000 that's short of this contract to that bonding. So basically, we would be getting a loan for the amount of the downtown sidewalk portion of the CIP plus the skate park, and then that would be repaid with the TIF as is. I don't know, how much do you think it would change the payment page? $40,000 or 15 years?
Not much.
Not much. It'd be not significant as far as the payments go on the debt service. That recommendation presupposes a few things. It presupposes that URA would support such a thing, although as a commission, you can set aside that money and say you also bond for that. It presupposes that downtown property owners would be supportive of that kind of, let's say, financing structure. And that you will approve the bonding when it comes before you. So it presupposes those things. The largest advantage of that is it does let us go forward. We can sign a complete contract and start construction work. Additionally, if we do get the money raised between now and the time that we have to pay out that full amount, then we wouldn't have to bond for that extra amount. If we did get it, any amount that we got would cut off the amount we would have to bond for. We wouldn't have to do right bond. So those are the 3 options before you. Again, I do not recommend option 2. Option 1 is obviously valid. But option 3 does allow us to move forward, but we have to look at it on the.
Thank you very much. I'm going to
Historic reference. Question.
Remind me again why we went to bid when we didn't have the funding.
Because we were looking for what the actual cost was going to be. We had our estimates, but we wanted to see what the bids would actually come in at. Okay. So we knew how far we had to go.
And what was the initial amount that the skate park was trying to raise from the beginning?
I do not know what the starting amount was.
Apparently, I know they had some figure they were reaching for, so I'm just curious
It
about
was
that.
250. I'm not sure about that.
And I think when we open it to public comment, we could ask that question.
Well, yeah, I was just, to save everyone the argument, I was just trying to get
I
a
think it was
background history.
$250,000 was the initial amount they were looking for.
Okay.
Can we verify that?
275.
275? 275.
275. And then my last question, just so we're all clear, the URA has not been contacted in regards to floating a loan
No.
to them. So that's,
It wasn't at last meeting.
okay. And then I think as well, when they make loans to anyone, they charge interest.
Not necessarily. Some of it was grants. So the grant portion, they didn't charge, well, they didn't even require payback. I think that for the
Grants,
school,
grant, yeah.
I think the school basketball court was one of those instances. The
Tennis, there's your tennis.
So are you proposing with the URA that it's a loan or a grant then?
I'm not. I
Okay.
leave that up to the URA and the commission.
So just to be clear though, if it's a loan, they do charge, I think, at the sidewalks. I don't know if Paige knows, but I know they charge an interest on loans.
They do for the sidewalk ones. Obviously, this is in their purview. They could do it however they wanted. If they wanted to do a 0 interest loan, they could. If they wanted to do a low interest loan, they could. It really just comes down to what you approve as a commission. Not what they would be willing to do as a URA.
Thank you.
We'll open it to public comment and two things. Please state your name and address and sign in, as well as we have a 4-minute limit tonight. Sarah, just going to-
Matt's all over it.
Perfect.
Hello, my name is Derek Smith. I'm with the skate park. I live at 309 South C. And to build off of your question, Commissioner Sandberg, we were originally looking at the $250,000. And then as we defined the project a little more each day, that project actually ballooned to 275, and because we have to go above ground, that is the discrepancy that we have between our goal and what we need to complete the goal. So we have a myriad of different things. Some of the lists that we had regarding the letters, we actually were able to make a $15,000 deposit today. So off the 2 letters that Michael was mentioning, that has actually turned into funds in our account. Is there any other questions I could probably answer?
So the overall amount's still the same, just the letters converted to cash.
Correct.
Thank you.
And so as of right now, I think we were sitting at 263 something, as Michael was saying. So we have approximately a couple other members here from our organization. We've got a couple outstanding grants we're still waiting for. And we've originally were planning on applying to the URA, but I was in contact with Bob Ebinger, and I'm not sure if he's still on the board or not. And the city's use of the URA funds for the downtown pretty much kind of told us that there wasn't funds available, so we just haven't applied for that. If there's funds available, I'll obviously apply for them. Any other questions?
Mike, as far as the funds being applied for in the sense of URA grants or funding, this isn't really typical or related to that. Right, so this isn't something you apply for, it's more like rolling it. Do you want to explain that again in just a very basic way?
Really, we just roll the shortfall, the funding gap in the skate park into the bond issue for the URA. So we do the loan for the rest of the downtown project. Which is at 2.1 million, right? That we're standing for the URA portion of the
Would that, does that make us have a loan that we have to repay back, or I don't understand?
That would be up to the URA to decide
Okay.
whether it was a grant or a loan, a 0 interest loan, a low interest loan. There's a bunch of options, and I don't know what they would do, but at least would be a funding mechanism that would then be available to them.
Okay.
There's still the funding mechanism of you raising money.
We're not stopping.
Right, so and that's just an option so that we can move potentially forward with the bid and accept the bid or not. So, any other questions for us?
No, unless you have questions for me.
And I consider that at the end of this report, there was a gentleman that was involved in the ring that you're going to have. Was it $50,000?
Correct, that would be the,
Is that, where did that fit into the funding?
so back to when Michael was saying we needed to define like how much the park costs. So a portion of the park that we're interested in building is $306,000. Jeff Ment's portion of the bid is another $50,000 on the side of it. And so those funds are already set aside by him. We're still trying to raise for the original 10,000 square feet park.
So if we hit,
This is for a separate future.
Okay.
so basically if we hit the $306,000, the extra 54 will kick in.
Any other public comment? Come on up.
Lincoln Jamrog, 124 South 9th Street, member on the committee for the skate park. I'd like to also mention that we do have some specific outstanding grants. Park County Community Foundation grant application is submitted. I believe that doesn't get awarded until May. We're about to submit for the Livingston Community Trust grant. I'm not sure what the timeline is on that one. We also have $1,000 commitment from Northwestern Energy pending. We requested $5,000. Their local Bozeman office committed $1,000, and the local representative is sending the additional $4,000 request to the state level. They can only fund so much at a local level. There's a precedent there from the Stevensville Skate Park where Northwestern donated a $5,000 amount. So I have a good feeling that we should get some portion of that requested funds. We also have another $2,000 that aren't on this list of individual contributions that haven't been accounted yet. We additionally have a request to the Montana Skate Park Association, which is an organization in Missoula, which Jeff Amen, who is also donating to our project, is a part of and is a funding partner for. They've funded to a considerable amount in certain other parks in the state, and we are waiting to hear back from them on what sort of commitment we can expect. Additionally, towards the end of May, we're planning on doing our annual Skater Palooza fundraiser, which has yielded between $15,000 and $25,000. The previous 2 times we've done this, we do art auction with skateboard decks, and we have a music and bring some ramps down to the fairgrounds. So there is considerable additional funding coming this way in the very near future. Thank you.
Other public comment?
Hi, I'm Colleen Ferris. I live at 209 South I Street. I'm the community manager for Park County Environmental Council, and I also serve on the Active Transportation Coalition. I just wanted to echo Adam's and Vicky's request to allocate funds for a overhaul in the city growth policy. Thank you for letting me know I had to wait to the end. I'm still figuring out the proposal.
Sorry. Yep.
Still have to wait?
Yes.
Oh,
So we're
it's already okay.
So we're discussing the funding for and improving
The skate park.
skate park.
Oh man, I'm asleep back there. I'm sorry.
Yes, that's
I
all
will
right.
wait.
You have to wait until the like
Very
everything
clear.
from the end.
Ah, okay.
Any other public comments on the skate park?
Public comment on the skate park? Okay. Jane Smith, 608 comment. I would encourage the commission to approve option C. This particular committee has served diligently for the last 8 years to really try to bring this project to fruition. The community has really been behind it, and I know confidence isn't really a thing that you vote on, but I'm very confident that they will, within the next building cycle, have all the money that they won't really need to go to the URA, I believe. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They're working very diligently at this. They've been an all-volunteer board, and I would encourage you to place your confidence in their ability to get this done and get this built for the community. There's a large section of the community who's underserved, and this is going to serve them. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Patricia Grable, 204 East Calendar Street. Of course, I attend all the meetings, attended the last URA meeting. There was not a quorum present, or they might have acted more on this. However, the general sense, there were discussions, and the sense that I had from the meeting was that they're very favorable to this. I want to also make a comment. I'm president of Downtown Building Owner and Business Association. We are the funding source for the URA. And I just want to say how much we support a bridge loan for the skate park. Our young people have worked so hard. It matters so much to them. And I like former Commissioner Bennett, I agree that there's very little doubt in my mind that they will come up with the money significantly before it's actually due. So, and we have, by the way, done loans like this with the tennis courts as well as with the basketball court. So we have, this is pretty typical for URA. And I've been attending those meetings for the last 8 years. So certainly it's within the purview of the commission. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
My name's Erica Lighthizer, 275 Convict Grade. Just as a mom and a mother of 3 and a community member, I think this would be a fabulous thing for our community. My children have received lots of splinters from the previous skate park, and so I really encourage the commission to choose that option C and move forward with this. It's really exciting for our community. We deserve it.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Last call. Commissioner comments. Any questions, comments, concerns? Warren?
I just like to point out one other advantage of the skate park to Livingston, other than the obvious advantage to the users, and that would be the attraction that the skate park would have for people just coming to Livingston, either dropping their children off or using the park themselves, and then contributing to the economy of the city by going to the local restaurants or shops or whatever. So it has more than just enhancing the livability of the city, so to speak. It does have a direct economic benefit also. Thank you.
Any other commission comments?
I'd just like to point out that the next URA meeting is until March 21st, and that would be after our regular city commission meeting, which is coming up the 20th. And the bid deadline is March 27th. So by the latest, we need to make a decision on our next regularly scheduled meeting. Putting that out there.
So did the URA provide a loan to the tennis courts, as Patricia alluded to?
I don't remember that.
I feel like there was some other park funding for blight, and I just don't know exactly what.
Madam Chair, if I may, I can
Yes,
probably
James,
comment
thank
on
you.
James Dennis, 608 comment. I could comment on that. They weren't loans, they were grants. There was a grant for the basketball court, as everyone here knows. And for the tennis court, I don't know the exact amount. And then there was another grant for some funding, and Mel, you might remember this, for the Climbing Rock project as well. So there's been several grants for that recreational area. And that, and I'm not sure if some of the sidewalking, maybe the public works would know, sidewalking and curbing around there came from URA at all, or is that all city funds?
Around which?
Around the band shell, the farmer's market area.
That was city funds.
City funds. But at least I remember those 3 projects. Thank you.
So I'll just say where I struggle with this. Nobody's debating the value of the skate park and what it'll do for a community. We're all in agreement on that, or we wouldn't have agreed to provide the land for the skate park to be built on. This has been an ongoing process. I am concerned about the funding. The URA option, I don't like. I know that they have provided grants in the past, the most recent one to the basketball court for, I think it was $5,000 or $8,000 or something. But, and I understand that it's in their purview to do that, but I hate to speak for a subcommittee without their input. And I know that it's a broad document in the URA agreement, but the overall meat and potatoes of the URA agreement is tax-paying entities paying these funds going into being consolidated for the use to help with their buildings downtown. When the grant for the basketball courts was approved, I received a lot of negative feedback from property owners downtown who actually pay into the URA, as their impression is those funds should be used back into the businesses who actually paid those funds. So I struggle with this as a funding option personally. And again, without the representation of communicating with the URA, whether this would be a grant, whether this would be a loan. So I guess, it's a difficult position because I just don't think the city's responsibility is loaning money at whatever entity you want to look at it, whether it's the city or the URA, with no guarantee of funding. We're basically making a no guarantee loan. And so I struggle with that. Because I know we don't have, an additional $40,000 to cover it. I know the URA, we had told the URA that they can't do any more funding for building projects downtown because they were in the hole. And now we're using them as an entity to support a skate park. And I'm not understanding the logic behind that. We have denied applications for people wanting to do facade work on their buildings, but now we're looking at providing money for the skate park through the URA. So I have difficulty with that as well. So thank you.
Any other commission comments?
I guess I have a question. The three options. Somebody needs to make a motion for an option, or we can table this until the next meeting. Meanwhile, maybe the URA can have a special meeting beforehand. I hate to get down to the wire, but I have the same concerns Sarah does too, as well. I wouldn't look at grant money, but certainly a loan I'd be in favor of. But, I'd like to table it, and I'm on the URA board and I'm a voting member, but perhaps let's see, get their opinion, and perhaps have a meeting for our next meeting.
Any other comments on what Clinton just said or thoughts? So our time. Do you have something like?
Procedurally, I can give you a couple more options if you want. So, that's why I'm making it more confusing. Again, I worry about pushing it up to the limit as well. So another option would be to pass it contingent upon URA approval. So you can amend it and say, yes, we agree with this if the URA agrees to this, and then the URA, if they hold a meeting, then then it's done, we can move forward at that point, because obviously we want to start construction as soon as possible. So the sooner we get it signed, the better off we are.
And option 3 does specifically state providing a bridge loan. I know it's unsecured, but unless somebody wants to put the house up.
Because, well, and off of that, This has no reference to the granting mechanism of your.
Right.
So I think we are kind of moving back and forth in the discussion. So, do we want to move forward with someone making motion at this point?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 4785. Option 3, specifically bridge loan. As stated in our packet.
Second.
Contingent on. And it's to that contingent.
Yeah. Oh, I don't.
Okay.
I'm not amending.
Well, you were just talking about one. so
Oh,
I
no,
was-
no, no. Because we have the option. So, as it's written.
We have a motion by Schwartz and a second by Freeman. Any final commissioner comments?
So you're, I just want to clarify with Quentin, you're okay with not having approval from the board?
No, I want URA's approval. I'm sorry. That's the part that needs to be amended. Yeah, contingent upon URA's approval. Option 3.
So we have, that's right. We have a motion by Schwartz to amend the resolution to have the resolution approved contingent on URA approval. Do we have a second? And do I have to repeat that? Is it Julie? Second, okay, all right. Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Chairperson Holcomb,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
4.
Commissioner Friedman,
4.
Commissioner Sandberg,
Against.
Commissioner Mayhew.
4.
Motion passes. I'm excited. to see it. I want to just make a statement on, I was teaching city government to some students today. And I was talking about city commission, what we do and who's on. And I said tonight, we're talking about skate park, and they said, well, I heard that wasn't gonna happen. So now I can tell them it's gonna happen somehow. Next, we have our action items. We have, like I said earlier, we are removing action item D at this time, even though it's just tabled. And we will continue work on that letter, the BLM letter.
Can you repeat, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
We are tabling the action items, action item D, the BLM letter that we have started, that the commission voted on to work on to submit. But we're tabling it just for time's sake because of the permit being held up at this point. Doesn't mean it's going away. We're just tabling it tonight. That's the only thing. We can put it back on the agenda pretty quickly. We'll just have more time. Yep, and we'll continue to work on the letter.
Is there an opportunity for a quick public comment related to that?
At the end, because we removed it. Sorry.
Cool. We'll get up there calling.
Yes. So the lease the leases are being withdrawn or held right now. I don't know if I've heard that it's they're going away, but they're for more public comment, more time. And so we're just taking an extra couple weeks.
But
to
not
get
all
our-
parcels, just two of the parcels, the ones on the bench south of Livingston were deferred. The rest in Park County are all still up for auction on the.
All are, okay. All right, well, we are tabling this item because we've already requested that, but we are still in the process of finishing that letter. So it's not changed. Yeah. Okay. So we have We actually have 4. We've had an additional action item added tonight. And so our first action item is Laura Rhodes, DMV regarding the fee waiver for the Civic Center for clinic, the rattlesnake vaccination clinic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this request is from Laura Rhodes for a rattlesnake vaccination clinic, fee waiver at the Civic Center. The administration does support the fee waiver. It just, while this isn't a written policy, our general policy of the administration is if you are conducting either a free service or an at-cost service for the community, we'll support the fee waiver in that. If you are looking to either make funds off of an event or even raise money for a nonprofit off of an event, then we don't recommend a fee waiver. But in this case, the clinic is being offered at cost, just at the cost of the vaccination itself, not the time. So we would support the fee waiver for that.
Do we have any public comment on the request for a fee waiver? Commission comments? No. So moving that forward, do we need to have a motion for approval? And or deny, I guess. So do we have a motion for action item A?
Yeah, I make a motion for action item A that we approve it.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion by Friedman, second by Schwartz. Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Chairperson Hoagland?
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz?
Four.
Commissioner Friedman?
Four.
Commissioner Sandberg? 4. Commissioner Maybe?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next action item is to discuss, approve, deny MOU with AFSCME regarding seasonal employees. Mr. Curtis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This again is a seasonal request that you've seen come through. What it does is, in this case, this is the pay scale for our seasonal employees. Our seasonal employees in the Public Works Department are part of the union when they're hired during the summer. So this sets their pay structure for first-time employees, returning employees for the second year, and then third and beyond years. This is a slight raise, but the first year is still at about $13 per hour, which is the competitive rate for part-time labor at this time.
Public comment on action or the MOU. Okay, any commission comments? Sarah?
So what was the percent raise?
I think we went from 12 to 13, so $1. I don't know what that percent is, but it's $1 now.
Commissioner comments? Do I have a motion to approve action item B?
I make a motion we cast approve action item B.
Second,
I'll second.
we have a motion by Friedman and a second by Maybe. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Hoagland?
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz?
4.
Commissioner Friedman?
4.
Commissioner Sandberg? 4. Commissioner Maybe?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have a discuss, approve, deny, and MOU with AFSCME regarding summer schedule.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is again an annual one. So this allows us to, since the union sets the work schedule and the hours, this allows us to change it during the summer schedule to be able to work some later hours in the daylight. It just is the agreement that allows us to change the hour, continue with their breaks. You notice there's only 2 15-minute breaks and 1 15-minute meal break. So they get the full 10 hours of those breaks.
Thank you. Any public comment? Commissioner comments on action item C. MOU with AFSCME regarding summer schedule. We have a motion by the commission to approve action item C.
I make a motion that we approve action item C.
We have a second.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Friedman and a second by Maybe. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Hoagland?
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz?
4.
Commissioner Friedman?
4.
Commissioner Sandberg? 4. Commissioner Maybe?
Yes.
Motion passes. Our last action item is action item E, to discuss, approve, deny Livingston Fire and Rescue Memorandum of Understanding with IAFF Local 630. Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This memorandum of agreement is with the IAF 630 due to a change in how Medicare was billing critical care transfers. We used to be able to bill it for the type of care that was given, but they changed requirements to a higher certification for those personnel involved. So we're not allowed, or we're not able to charge for all of our paramedics, but only the ones that are critically care certified. So this MOU changes the incentive pay to only those paramedics who are critically care certified. So it just matches up what we pay in incentives to what we're able to bill on critical care ones.
Any public comment? Or commission comments or questions? Do I have a motion on action item E?
I move we accept action item E.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Maybe and a second by Schwartz. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Hogler,
Yes?
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Friedman,
Four.
Commissioner Sandberg, Commissioner Maybe.
Yes.
Motion passes. We now move on to public comment. Please state your name and sign in. It's time.
Federico Matesta, 15 Buffalo Jump Road. So I'm speaking with city manager and commission, maybe understand this is the right place where to voice the overwhelming opposition from business owners and building owners to a one-way street. I understand this is now not the right time to go in any detailed discussion, but we would like to suggest a public meeting where we can raise our concerns to the proposal in all the various stages. I own a business in West Park Street. If parking would be removed from there, all of the business on the street would go bankrupt. We have other concerns about what the one-way street would do to downtown in terms of what it would look like, traffic, increased traffic on all the streets, etc. So we read the report, traffic report. It's a very narrow engineering report. It doesn't include any economic analysis and cultural analysis of what we mean for Livingston. And many people, like myself, just move it down, especially for its character, which would be strongly damaged by this one-way street proposal. So we would like to suggest it's a time where somebody from the city side can explain why the proposal, in addition, hopefully, to that very narrow traffic study, and where would voice our concerns and opposition to the project. Now, the people talking about already legal action and something that I don't think is very constructive at this stage. So if we can have a good discussion and time allocated for that, that would be very helpful for everyone. Thank you.
So, Mike, as far as information, to clarify something that was said, should we wait until our commission comments, or can we clarify?
Wait, because I have a chance to see.
All right, thank you.
Never been so excited to give a public comment. Okay, so I'm Colleen Ferris. I'm at 209 South I Street. I'm the community manager with Park County Environmental Council, and I serve on the Active Transportation Coalition. I'm just here to give kudos for Adam and Vicki for requesting allocated funds for the potential city growth policy. Both the Park County Environmental Council and the ATC group would like to support this request because we believe that by coming together and having engaged community input, we can create a document that can guide both of our organizations' work. Speaking firsthand, the Active Transportation Coalition, we benefit from the robust county growth policy. We use that in every meeting to guide our work, and we look at the priorities and action items and see how we can contribute to that. And we just wish to see the same from city leadership to embark on this journey so we can engage in the process. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Hi there, I'm Jeanette Blank at 418 South 9th Street,
here in town. Even though unfortunately, it's a bummer that the oil and gas lease letter has been tabled today. I know quite a few people, or some people showed up for that specifically. So, but I did want to just emphasize that it is only the parcels that are on the bench, the Livingston bench, which is great, that has been deferred. The other parcels in Park County have not, and those parcels will go up for lease on the 13th. So, so it is. I'm still hopeful that the commission. You know, I know it's been tabled, but it's important to get this letter in. I think we all agree that it's important to do that. But it's key not to feel like the pressure is off on this, because it is only a temporary hold. We don't know how long the BLM this analysis will be. It could be short, it could be long, but this is actually a really important time to get your comments in. I have a copy of the amendment notice from the BLM that I'll submit, and this is the notice that the BLM posted publicly yesterday after the announcement about the deferral, and it says, it just says the following parcels have been deferred or partially deferred from the March 13, 2000 competitive oil and lease sale until staff can review the adequacy of the Butte office and BLM office resource management plans to provide the appropriate level of protection in light of issues raised concerning the viewshed, the local economy, the effects of oil and gas drilling and production on the environment, including air quality, drinking water, and overall water quality. So those are exactly all of the concerns that were discussed at the previous meeting. I think that we all got a lot of nods and agreement that these were key. So, so the draft letter does address that. And like I said, this is the time where the BLM is sitting there circling the wagons right now to say, okay, we need to reevaluate this. What is the important, what are the key things? They've listed them here, but the city's got a unique viewpoint on this. There's been a lot of public comment on this, obviously, but it holds a lot of weight to have something from the city coming in right now saying these are the concerns that we have as the representatives of our city, sort of the gatekeepers for the well-being of the city. And so I really strongly encourage you to get this in, to not just postpone it because the pressure is off. We just don't know what that time scale is going to be. And again, I'm more than happy to do whatever I can do, lending my technical expertise on this to help move that along. And I know a lot of people would really appreciate that.
Erica Lighthizer, 275 Convict Grade again. Yeah, I would just like to echo what Jeanette has come up and stated. I came this evening to talk about the BLM oil and gas and to really just celebrate everything that the commission's done so far for this issue. Not every day that your community is a part of a smoking hot tweet that Secretary Zinke sent out. So I just really appreciate all the commission's efforts to pull this letter together. The letter, I saw a draft of it. It looked really good. And again, we really like the commission to submit that letter. The deadline for the oil and gas lease sale is on March 13th. So ideally, the commission could get that letter in before that date so that you'd be part of the record. And then if there's ever future decisions to be made regarding these parcels, that you would be part of the process. And we hope that the city of Livingston would be a stakeholder. So thank you so much again for all you've done. And Sarah Sanford, Commissioner Sanford, particularly for attending our February 15th public meeting and then requesting that the commission take a closer look at this. So thank you.
Thank you. This is Jeanette Blank again at 418 South 9. One thing I meant to add is if we could please request that this is going to come back up for discussion and approval, if we can add that to the next meeting's agenda, which is what would be March 20th. Is that correct? Put that request in.
Hey guys, it's Michael DeChellis. I'm with at 315 Westview, and I was excited to see that the two issues I came to comment on can be unified with just one statement, which is sustainable economics of the city and the county moving forward. I moved here from Texas 7 months ago. My family is from South Texas, where a lot of oil and gas development has been done. So that's the first topic I'd like to talk about. I just encourage you guys to, as they said, don't take the foot off the gas on this. The economic development, the boom and bust cycles that happened in South Texas, where I'm from, have been devastating. Rent went through the roof. Tons of hotels were built, and now they're all empty. And that's exactly what happens in oil and gas development. There's almost no jobs that are maintained over time. It's not a very sustainable thing. And I'm also aware of how little the city sees when oil and gas development actually happens. I also recently purchased the home here, and we have a wonderful view of the view shed. The estimate for the property value of our view is around $100,000. And so when oil derricks go up, all of our property values go down, especially anybody that has a good view of that view shed. And I would encourage you to not let my property value go down by submitting that letter in support. And so then that actually leads to the second, which is strong support for this planning effort. I think that there are sustainable ways to grow and there are unsustainable ways to grow, and those are all based on how much money is the city going to be able to spend to sustain things like infrastructure and all that stuff moving forward. And a lot of those decisions can be intelligently made if we have the data. And I think that having this effort to put this together and have the information on hand to make both growth policy decisions, but also just all the way down to the permitting process, and make those decisions with the information that you need in order to make the decision on whether it's going to be a sustainable thing for the city and the county for decades hence is really important. And so I've voiced my support for putting aside strong support for that. Thank you very, very much. Cheers.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I'm Laura Rose, the veterinarian who's offering the rattlesnake clinic, and thank you very much for approving my fee waiver request to use the Civic Center. I have an additional question. If I should offer an additional day at the dog park to do this vaccination clinic, would I need to get city approval for that?
Additional what? What was your?
If I offered additional dates but held it at the dog park, would I need city approval to do that?
I think notification would be good.
And would that be to the city manager? Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Leslie Feigl, representing the Chamber of Commerce, 303 East Park Street. So unrelated, I guess, just a few things here that I wanted to bring up, just make notice of. I did send out the email to everybody. I've already spoke with Mike in regards to the banners that we're likely to put up around town during the construction phase. And I sent it to all of you, so hopefully you saw them and that you agree that they're adequate as well to support the local downtown businesses. I do have emails into MDT through Bill Pierce. They have not come back with some of the locations being approved, and those would be down in the 8990 interchange area, so I might need your assistance on that. I am meeting with the LBID to help fund partially
the printing of these. They're $50 a piece. It's $770. And there's 14 banners that need to be made, so I might need to put this on the next agenda to bring up to see if maybe the city would also be helpful in paying a quarter or a third of this, excuse me, to get the banners printed. And these are going to go up on all of the road blocks to, as you saw the banners, what they say, at the Main Street, at Calendar Street, and down in the Lewis area, as well as all of our exits, to show that the historic downtown is 100% open. So another thing is we are, through the Office of Tourism, and the Department of Commerce, our meeting 2 weeks ago, we discussed HB 473 that was passed last March 2017. And what we hear a lot of is that through tourism, folks here don't see much money coming back into our communities to help. That is exactly what this was. Number two in the economy here, the driver is gasoline sales. And so to get some of that money to come back into our community to help with infrastructure, roads, and what we need is just a wonderful thing. So we're super excited that the funding is starting to get out to all of our counties and cities. Number three, the Montana Film Office wanted me to deliver a message to you today that we knew that we were going to get streets and the sidewalks corrected and fixed and beautified, and we're 100% behind that. But the one-way street, they are 100% against that, and they wanted me to bring that up for you, as well as many of us are. We have a couple major films that are coming here to scout this area in the next couple of months, as well as our airport. And I delivered that notice up to them as well. They love it the way it is, to be able to do this next couple major films. And they would like to see that one-way street not happen and to leave the street the way it is. So I delivered the message. And I think that's it for today. And I'll be back in front of you soon. We have a lot of great stuff coming. Next 57 seconds, the bus is finally going to be running for employees and non-resident travelers down to Gardner starting in the spring. So I'll get that information to you soon. Thank you.
So Leslie, a question, what you just said. So the film office, so the Montana Film
Commission, yes.
Yeah.
Allison Whitmer, she's the new film commissioner there, and they are actually trying to reenact the the tax incentive program. We've been working on it for a few years, and we're really glad to have her back on board. This last film put a lot of money, even though it was a small indie film, put a lot of money into our economy, as well as many of the commercials that were here. I don't know if you saw the Super Bowl this year. You guys saw the commercial, the Toyota commercial. That was filmed here in Livingston. The what? The Ram, the Dodge Ram, yes. Well, the Toyota one was done up in Missoula, excuse me. So yeah, those kind of things, they sneak in here, and that's great for us. So they're 100% behind wonderful things like this. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
I'd like to piggyback a couple of the comments on the one-way street. I think that occurred really quickly, and the community wasn't prepared well for the implications and the ramifications of a one-way street. We have additional expertise we'd like to bring in to the commission. One of the things that is really paramount in all of this is we did a survey of downtown Livingston. Now, remember that Livingston was 13 hotels that sprung up to accommodate 30,000 visitors a season on 6 trains a day. And all those hotels were turned into affordable housing. So we did a brief survey of downtown building owners. We found that there are 324 approximately apartments in downtown Livingston for which we have made no allowance on parking. So the addition of 40 additional parking places is almost insignificant in light of the number of parking places that are required by residents. our board watched a webinar on parking. And one of the things that came out of the webinar was if you do not consider residential parking, then you might as well not consider anything. So we would like to continue this discussion on two-way streets versus one-way streets. And also politely request that we begin to really seriously look at parking. Livingston has never created a parking plan. Every other community you can imagine, Shelby, have created parking plans, we haven't. And so we'd like to have us consider back up a little bit and take a look at the sustainable ramifications of the two-way versus one-way street. Thank you. Oh, one other quick thing. Thank you so much for our new website. And I just wanted to know if the city manager comments are going to be added to that website that you said.
There's still a lot that needs to be added to the website. We're just in the very.
I really appreciated those comments, and I did a freedom of information that are very helpful for the community to be able to see them as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Anyone else? City manager comments.
I just have a few comments this evening. First, a clarification on, at least a factual clarification. The one-way street project does not involve any change to Park Street at all. There will be no parking loss on Park whatsoever. There's no plans to change anything on Park. The only study we're doing is still traffic light at Second. That hasn't been decided. And if we did decide anything, it would be coming for you again for public comment. So there's absolutely no changes to Park Street at all. Nor is there a plan to. Yeah, sure. So, but I will guarantee you there's no change. There was some drawings in the plans, but that was a concept that is not part of our plan.
No, yes.
It's not looking to be part of our plan. We're not looking at any changes to Park Street. Like I said, the only change we're looking at on Park Street is a possible stoplight sign. That's it. We're not looking at any of the other stuff currently. I mean, I'm not going to guarantee in 10 years they won't, but right now we are not.
And the state isn't looking at it currently.
State is not looking at any of those changes.
And it's a state highway.
And none of those changes are driven by a one-way street. Those changes could be brought up with or without a one-way street. It does not matter. The one-way street doesn't affect any of the changes to Park. If it was a two-way street, you could still put a turn lane in it. If it's a one-way street, you could not have a turn lane. So none of the changes that were shown on that diagram were in relation to a one-way street. They were there when it was a two-way street as well. So those two are not related. Speaking of traffic, there will be, at some point, we're doing a couple test traffic things this summer, so you'll see them around town. We're looking for some traffic calming items. As the commission brought up a couple meetings ago, speeding was an issue, so we're looking at some speed control initiatives and pedestrian safety issues. You might see them around town. We're still finalizing what they'll look like and what they'll be, but we are working on that, and you'll see stuff this summer. Additionally, I don't know if you saw the news from the tax bill that Livingston was nominated or identified by the Department of Commerce as one of 106 possible opportunity zones. Our census tract 3 goes from Main Street to the river and then northeast from there. It's census tract zone 3 in Livingston. So we are applying for that designation with the state. They will pick 25 of those. And if they choose Livingston, that will be an investor tax credit program for any development that happens in that zone. So that's an option for some tax credits to encourage investors to build in that section of Livingston or to revitalize in that section of Livingston. So we'll keep you updated as we go through the application process that just came out today. And we're working with Katie Weaver at MSU as the economic development agent. She's helping shepherd that through. And we will get an application in, and I think it's due by the 19th. So we're on a short hold on that one. But we're working on that currently. The The last issue refers to solid waste. One of the issues the commission has brought up repeatedly is the financial situation of solid waste. So we did some research on the rate structure and realized that we have 10 rate structures, 12 I think, 12 rate structures that we're currently charging, in the code allows us 2. So these have existed for 20 plus years. This has been the way we've done it for a long time. There's not a lot of rhyme or reason for it. So we're going to move with the May service, the April service, which will show up in June bills. We're going to standardize how we charge solid waste. Right now we have 5 or 6 different rates for blue cans, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. So we're going to standardize the rate for blue cans. If you have a blue can, it costs the same. Doesn't matter where you live or what you do. The only difference would be if you were commercial or residential. So we're going to standardize those across the board. We're also going to look at how we charge the commercial bins for multifamily dwelling units. We have a different rate for every single number of units that you can have in an apartment building up to 10. So we're going to standardize those as well. There'll be a steady rate per dwelling unit. So if you have 3 or more, you're required to have one of the black bins, and then we'll charge a steady, a flat rate for each unit that you have in that building. Won't make any changes for standard residential. This generally affects only multi-dwelling units. Won't be any changes for the businesses. Even when we standardize this down to 4 rates, it's going to be much, much closer to code, but it won't be exactly in accordance to code. So we're also going to bring a code change in front of you to make sure that we match those 2 up. Once we get that done, then the code should match the billing and everything should be locked up. So you will see that coming before you, the code change in the next month or 2. The rate changes will go in effect again with the April service, which will take place in the June bill. So these rates will be set for the next fiscal year. And that's all I have.
Thank you. So commissioner comments, Warren? Anything?
The only, I think the main thing as far as really the future of Livingston at this point is if the city plan is done by professionals the same way that the county plan was, and in coordination with the county plan, there's a lot of things that are happening now that are really at major tipping points. And I think a professional organization that's their purview, I think that would be a much better way to handle that. And also that it should be done in the near future. Thank you.
Sarah?
I will echo what Warren said in regards to the growth policy. And with that, though, is the need for impact fees update. Is that, I know we've been talking about it, but is that something the planning board, we can put them to work on to help out move that along? Or, because to me, they're going to kind of go hand in hand and we may be missing out on some financial opportunities with a very outdated fee structure.
If so, the impact fees study is another one we're looking at trying to fund.
Oh, okay.
It's the exact same, really, it's pretty much the exact same cost and the exact same problems. We actually figured out the funding source for it. We're doing, I'd say, some research into what funding sources are legal to use for it. You can't use impact fees to pay for impact fee studies, which is not so useful. So we're trying to figure out if there's any other avenues that we have. Additionally, we're researching the grants that we can get for that, because it'll be another $50,000 to $60,000 study.
Kind of all ties into with the tax credit issue we discussed. If something happens that's going to promote more growth in the area, we'll need our growth policy, our impact fees. And then just a clarification on the tax credits, we don't lose any revenue. Somebody's just paying their tax on behalf. Is it income, property? What are the tax credits, I guess?
I think the tax credits are I think they're federal tax credits because it's Department of Commerce.
Okay.
So I don't think it doesn't do anything for property taxes, but it does federal taxes.
Okay, so it's an income side. Okay, thank you. A couple other things. Mike, did you want me to talk about the water reclamation or do we have that?
Bring that up, that'd be great.
Okay, so I've had a few people talk to me about the water reclamation facility and the expense, and I know we've had a lot of meetings. And I know that when I'm not clear on how everything changed financially. I know I've asked a lot of questions when the engineering firms have presented to us, and I never really had my questions answered. So most recently had a community member ask me about how we moved to the 19 million north figure on the water reclamation facility. So I sat down and started going through the agendas and kind of put a little timeline together, which I shared with Mike and this community member. And the original estimate from the engineering firm after we gave them awarded them the engineering contract, it came back with an amount of 14.6 million, which would include all engineering, construction, and administration costs. And now we're at 19 whatever. So I had talked to Mike about it, and I think he was in agreement of doing this, is putting together a document that just highlights the changes of how we got from the 14.6 to the 19 that we can share with the public. So when we're asked, we can give them an answer, unless anyone else knows it off the top of their head, because I don't. We know my voting record on the facility, which has been consistently negative. But it really made me realize that my questions never really been answered by the engineering firm either. So I think we owe it to the community to explain to them how we went from an estimate, which I realized it was an estimate at that time, to the current 19. So are we all okay with having Mike move forward with that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. The only other thing, I guess, just public record for people who are in the community and the one-way streets, that I often get a lot of looks from people when they are making comments, and maybe it's because I'm giving them eye contact when they're making comments to the public, but I was against the one-way street as well. I'm the naysayer, so I could not convince my commission otherwise, so the poll's got to come from the other folks to make that change. Then I support you with the no one way, but I was the lone vote against it. So just to be on the record on that. I guess two other things. I just wanted to bring up a proposal to perhaps change our meeting times from 6:30 to earlier, whether it be 5:30, 5:45, 6. I just throw it out there. It's nothing we need to discuss right now, but I'm not sure if people are, 6:30 just kind of seems a silly time to me. It doesn't really give you enough time to do anything once you get home from work anyway. So my whole selfish idea is in earlier, out earlier. So, and I don't know, maybe I can, if nobody else is interested, we can just let it die. If somebody is interested in moving it a little bit earlier, maybe we can discuss it further at an additional meeting.
I would love to have a discussion on it.
Okay.
I know historically we have had some movement on the times. I don't know where it's gone in the past. I don't remember. I don't think it's moved time-wise since I've been on the commission, but does anyone have any?
It went from 6 to 6:30. James Bennett brought that up. Used to be 6 o'clock many years ago.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, James Bennett changed it.
So how do we put it on as an action item, or?
And I think it actually states in our code, so it would have to be an ordinance change, so you'd have to do public hearings.
And I think too, we can change that so it's not in code and it's set, and it's set by the commission at the beginning of each year when we do our structure of officers. We can set meeting time for the year.
By resolution.
So put it on as an action item and then add it as a resolution. correct? Or do we just move it to a resolution at this point and then,
If you're interested in it, we'll move it straight to an ordinance. We'll, you know,
or an ordinance?
yeah, so we'll have to do two public hearings and then we can change it. And we can actually, if we're gonna do that, I'll look at the whole section on the meeting and we'll see if we can move most of it into more policy structure so that it's more easily changed.
Cool. Okay, last one, the BLM letters. So I was misinformed. I thought all leases were pulled from Park County.
I was misinformed as well.
So I was misinformed. Realized, and I shouldn't say pulled, withdrawn for the moment. Deferred. Thank you. So, and I, you know, obviously, I think we all know the importance of continuing the momentum. So I struggle with where to go from now, because I feel personally it's not, you know, obviously the bench is in our vision. Well, and I guess it pertains a little bit more to the city, but is there a way, because this will not get there by the deadline for the other 3 leases that are still out there if we wait till the next meeting. So the only option I can throw out there, and then Mike, maybe you have a better option, but I don't know, Jarrell, if you can work with Jeanette to clean up the language and send it out to us and we have a special meeting to approve it prior.
That was my question as well, because we have the draft letter, but the city, and we didn't have a lot of time to actually put it into city speak. So how do we move forward from this letter to get it done sooner than later?
There's a couple issues I think that we probably should be cognizant of going forward is what scope we're gonna put in the letter. Obviously, once we start talking outside of Livingston, it falls more in the purview of the Park County Commission.
Exactly.
And they're not doing the letter. So I'm not sure we want to get cross purposes with the county commission on the scope of the letter. If we hold it to the scope of the bench, those are still deferred. We can still absolutely comment on it. I'll check with the BLM to see if they're deferred, if there's going to be a later comment period. Since they aren't going out for bid with the other ones, if the comment period is extended for those particular leases. So we can check with the BLM and find that out. If it is, then I think we just bring it forward to the next meeting. I can work with PCEC or Jeanette or whoever to kind of work on the language a little bit and make sure it's in a city format. If they're not going to extend, then I think I can still do that. And what's the deadline? The 13th and the 6th, so we got a week. Then I think you're in the realm of a special meeting if you want to approve it. So whether that's on, probably have to be on Monday, and then we can send it in that next week, which will be the 13th.
Let's put in for and plan for a special meeting. And so we can put out public notice and then if it changes, then we change. Is that good?
Yeah, can you clarify, Mike, what you said? The county's not submitting a letter? What did you say?
Yeah, they brought it before the county chose not to submit a letter to BLM.
On any of the leases?
On any of the leases.
Okay.
Because the county residents, I think, were more split. I think they were more outside city limits that were interested in development.
Okay, I was misinformed again. I was told that the county had submitted a letter of support.
I'm pretty sure they did not. I'll double check on that.
No, I'm not, I'm just saying I was misinformed. So, okay. All right. Sorry, I was just looking at my calendar. So that would be the 12th. Would it need to happen Friday? Because isn't the actual sale the 13th?
I thought the comment period was the 13th and the sale was the 17th.
I thought the sale was the 13th.
When's the comment period?
I think the 12th.
If it's the 12th,
They might say on there.
we could do this Friday.
Yeah. I guess that, and it would, yeah, be helpful if we didn't have to hash out the language.
Some, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can,
Somebody with expertise. I did reach out to PCEC. I haven't received a call back. But I'll follow up with them tomorrow.
I can do that. I'll contact Michelle and talk to her. I think she's the one spearheading it.
Yeah, so you, okay, I forwarded that to you, so,
Yeah.
okay.
I can swing by and talk to them. So I'll try and get you guys a draft by Thursday. And then we can see, or say about 3 to 4 collective events. I'll try to get you a draft by Wednesday so that we can do a special meeting on Thursday. Would that work better?
What time?
Whenever you guys want. Would be a 1-issue special meeting.
We're looking at special meeting on Friday or Thursday, so.
Whichever works better.
Could we do a lunch? I have meetings from pretty much 3:30 until 7:30 that night.
Friday.
On Thursday.
But Thursday would have to be after work for me, because I'm getting mine in Bozeman, so.
So, and I will offer this as an expedient solution, not a philosophical one. You only need a quorum. So as long as everyone agrees that this is something you want to do now, as long as 3 of you can.
Sure.
Doing it on Friday. Bring those when
No, well, but I don't have my schedule with me, so why don't you guys schedule what works for you guys, and I might be able to just even call in or something too, so schedule what works for you guys, and I'll figure it out.
What do you guys think?
I can be here anytime.
Yeah, same here. What,
Like 1:30?
Friday was better for you?
Yeah, a little bit as far as the day, but I can
Me,
make it
or-
1:30 or
Or after work?
no, CPM, so I start meetings at 8:30.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yes. Okay, so like Friday at 1,
Friday at 1,
and then
well,
Sarah, if you can call in.
Yeah.
Friday?
I'll do what I can.
Yeah, I got a party at 9 o'clock.
All right, one last thing is, strategic plan completion. Do we get any dates yet?
You guys have to pick a date still.
I thought you were gonna see when they were available.
We hadn't picked a time frame we wanted to do it in yet. We just said not February.
Okay. I guess I'll throw it out there again when they're available. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon.
The basic time I can't is like the last week of the month. I'm out of town.
March.
March. Have a commission meeting on 20th. Other comments on times that work or don't work? I'm open. Maybe the 19th, 21st, 22nd, if you want to try that, and then it have to be the following, like the week after. The first week in April, I should say. Do you want to try, how about we do that? Why don't we try and see what days that they're available?
I'll see what their April availability is.
Like the first week in April, try for that. Well, we have commission meeting on the 3rd, but then that's it. Are you done, Sarah?
Yes, that was my laundry list, thank you.
That's good. Right now.
Wow, I must have talked to the same person who did about the water treatment plant. Now, we get 2 walkthroughs of the water treatment plant, and Quentin and I are the, Norton was in the first one, the only ones that show up.
Some of us have to go to work.
Yeah.
You were at the first one.
First of all, this is the water treatment plant. There's so many ins and outs. I was very impressed with where it is right now. I mean, it's fantastic. They worked right through the winter. The pouring cement, they're doing unbelievable things. I think it might take a meeting, Shannon and Matt, the two gentlemen I met out there. It's a change in environment. So there's going to be changes. And I think you really have to see it and talk to people that understand what it's all about. So I would think that if we could set up a meeting to satisfy everybody, the research that goes into this, the changes that occur because of DEQ, there's a lot to it. And I'm very impressed with the air with the plant right now and the workmanship and all that. So I take a different course the way I look at things. But I think we'll take that kind of a meeting because it's just all we get is hearsay and how come this and how come that. It's not a, how much is this going to cost? If things stay the same, it's a change in environment. So I'm very impressed where this is at the moment. It looks like we're going to be on time, especially with all this weather we've had. So I've been very impressed at this point. But I think is if you were sitting and looking at the tour, you would get a chance to ask questions. You get ideas of how, particularly they things change. So I'm trying to defend the people working on it. I think they're doing a darn good job. But we take that kind of a meeting to satisfy people. So, and I talked to possibly the same person. I understand the numbers are huge, and it's one of the biggest things we get involved in. But it's also setting us up for the next 40 or 45 years. So an awful lot of thought has to go into it and think out we got the footprint to put it in. So I don't know how to satisfy people other than letting the people involved in it directly tell you what's going on. So I guess all I could recommend at the moment. I yield.
Just to follow up on what Mel said, yeah, it is a very complex project and really hard to appreciate until you really go out there and look at it, especially keeping our current plant operational and stuff and all the minutia that goes into that. I too am very impressed, and the progress is they're moving along. Everybody seems to be getting along well as well. The only other thing I have is parking enforcement. Keeping complaints from people are still parked in the same spot and not moving. Is there anything we can do in the interim?
There is. I think you'll be starting to get different kinds of complaints.
Good. I just do know if you know we're gonna, because I know we're short personnel kind of, but.
We are, and they are, so we're working on plans to.
Okay.
And really, we're lining up the parking enforcement with the construction season to make sure
which is
that's
gonna be more critical. Okay.
That's when it's gonna be really the push for the parking enforcement, to make sure that when there's reduced parking, that people are staying within the time.
Yeah, okay. That's all, yeah, we just, another business owner that I haven't heard from before, so just not an isolated incident. It's all downtown. Thank you, I yield.
I have a couple issues tonight. First one, it was something Leslie brought up about the banners. I know typically when an area is under construction, there is often signage. Do we have any plans for signage for the downtown that the city would normally have?
Just the regular traffic flows.
And so she had made a statement about funding of like asking for a request. Is that something we need to put on an agenda put on an agenda? My mouth is getting so dry. Or do we just continue with what we're doing and move it forward?
I think there's gonna be a request from Liz to put on the agenda, so it'll probably come before you.
BLM questions to ask, and I'm satisfied with where we're going with it. The other issue as far as the one-way. I started my little mini research on the opinions of the community on the one-way. And I haven't finished it, but I have been asking like one-on-ones with people that are impacted. I think at this stage I would appreciate a public meeting to hear out people's opinions, because it doesn't seem to, nothing's really lining up. And so I would love to have a public meeting planned for downtown in general. Maybe we could address the one-way issue as well as the construction and some of the issues that we come with it. And
So there's already a meeting planned for the construction project next Thursday, I believe. That's going to be, I think, during the day with all the downtown business owners. And we're working on some of the communication projects. We're providing the draft schedule that the contractor has provided. And so we're working through that portion already. I think I would not conflate the two. I would keep them separate.
all right, so how do we, or does anyone else think that we should have a listening session regarding this? Because I hear very mixed messages still, and I need some feedback from the other commissioners. Sarah?
What do you expect to get out of the meeting? I mean, my understanding from what I'm being told is, you know, we have a bid on the project and we're moving forward. So what would we accomplish?
Well, I think,
Or are you thinking that we could still make a change?
well, I don't know if that is a possibility at this stage. I guess that's part of the discussion. I think that maybe the community needs to know that we're moving forward or not, or there is an option, or there is a possibility, or their opinion, because parking was the number one issue before, and now the one-way being the number one issue to a group of people. So it's either one or the other, and I'm wondering, you know, how do we move forward so at least we have a more concrete answer for the community?
I'm curious, how many meetings, public meetings did we have before when we were discussing all this? Do you remember? Was it 3?
Let's see, we had at least 3.
At least 3.
I think 4 if you count the commission meeting where it was passed.
Yeah, okay.
On the one-way.
Yeah, that's, in the bulb outs and all that. I also voted against the one-way, but not really. I wanted bulb outs and one-way, so. Technically, I did vote against just strictly the one-way. I mean, it's not gonna hold up construction. It's just a matter of signage at this point, and striping. Yeah, I guess we can, but do we have one more here, meeting, or do we have 2 more public meetings regarding this? We keep going around and around on that.
Or do we do a listening session versus a full commission?
I mean, I don't mind, but it just, otherwise, why do we even have meetings in the first place? You know, that's, I guess, one good. I don't have a problem with it. But just, it's time consuming.
If I may, I'm sorry.
Clear on what we expect the outcome.
Right, that's true.
I mean, if we want to list, if we're just providing a listing session, that's not going to help. If
Just gonna be a
we're,
bitch side.
if we want to say, okay, maybe, I mean, I guess we would have to be clear that we can do something around it. If we can't do
That's part of the
something about
question.
it, okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's
So that's what I'm saying, is there something at this stage we can discuss, an option that can be presented that would change where we're going, you know, our intent at this point, and having a listening session could be a place for that clarified. Yes. What do you think, Mr. Carter? Or
Well, I think a couple things that would be really helpful would be to, come up with a pretty accurate number for how many new parking spots are gonna be created. Because I've heard them all over the ballpark. And B would be to come up with, if possible, options. And by that, I mean identify areas in the city that are only 1 or 2 blocks off Main Street, or as close as possible, and make it known that that's available parking. I don't even know if that exists, but I think that for a starting point, I think it would be extremely helpful to see what would be positively created in terms of parking. I mean, I've heard everything from 40 or 45 up to over 100. That would be a good number to know.
56. 56 new parking spaces.
Okay, thank you.
Now, that depends on how many you say there are now. Because the parallel parking, there are no marked spaces, so you have to ask me.
Right.
well, maybe we just have it as a listening session at this stage. It could be the Saturday morning listening session and it's focused on it. I don't know. I'd take it. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of voices still fighting about this, and I think that if we had very concrete information that we could present to them again, and not that we haven't had information in the past, I'm not saying that, but having information and listening to the concerns and maybe having some answers to those concerns, whether it changes the situation or not isn't necessarily.
I don't think the issue is concrete. I don't think it's the number of parking spaces that's the issue. It's not really.
Right. I don't think that's a direct.
This is an aesthetic question.
Yeah.
And so it's not it really is what it comes down to, is it's aesthetics. Do you like it? Some people are worried about the speed, but we have forward stops at every corner. The speed's not going to change. You know, they look at studies and say one-way streets for used businesses, and they do, but those are arteries. Those are through streets where speeds go up and people don't stop. So it doesn't really apply. We're kind of unique in the fact we're talking 3 blocks, stop signs at every corner. So the real questions are not factual. They're not numbers you can provide. You know, people are worried about changes that may or may not happen on park in the future. But there are no plan changes, so that's not something that you can factually address. So this is really just a question of what do people want? And the problem is it's fairly split on what people want. You know, we could, as far as the possibility of changing, you can always change. Construction hasn't started. Sometimes it's an issue of money, but we absolutely, without the bulb outs, this is not a locked-in position.
Go ahead. Sorry, I'm just looking at the calendar.
So we voted for, the commission voted for the one-way with angled parking on each side. So in essence, as far as the actual construction process, we really don't have to make it definitive. Whether it's one-way or two-way, does that affect the width of how much asphalt they're throwing down? Right?
No, the only change is going to be paint.
So it's just paint.
Paint signage.
Okay.
we can delay this one till we finish the third block. Or- I mean, there's no driving, the real question is, do you want the parking or not? Is the parking worth the one way? And that's really that's the only issue I think.
I mean, I voted against it just from the folks that I heard from, there were majority against it. But I do agree with Quentin that we have had lots of opportunity for public input. But I'll support.
I'm not against more,
what the
as long as it's constructive.
Yeah, it's gotta
Instead
be
of just,
Well, I think that's really the question is what are we gonna discuss?
Do we want, or do we want to re-vote on the one way? Yes. Is that, sounds like that's what it's coming down to.
And again, I'm just trying, I don't want to get into a situation where we're 8 months down the road again. So if I remember the conversations correctly, most folks that were in for the one way as pedestrians wanted the bump outs and it's a whole safety component. And we're not thrilled that we approved the one way without the bump curb extension.
That's what I prefer.
So, what will be our deciding factor with the 50-50, split community? I think what I'm hearing from is business owners would prefer to keep it the way it is. I'm hearing from more, they don't contact me personally. I hear more from the business people, but from our meetings, I hear more from pedestrians that they would prefer one way, and in conjunction with the extensions. So I think we may have a split, we have a split population. So, I mean, I'm open for the support. I just am trying to figure out how we can delineate. Well, you're never going to please anyone. It's never going to happen. But again, we have to be prepared for how do we make it constructive, and how do we make sure that we're prepared for what we hear, whatever that may be.
Any of you helped me, right? Well, at this stage, I guess just keeping the conversation. I feel like I'm going to start with my committee surveys that I have started by asking face-to-face people their opinion versus just reading this is really Livingston or the comments of a few. So that's where I'd like to start, I guess, at this place, and then as a commission, if we see a time where we want to bring it back to the commission, then yes, we will.
Do you need some help gathering your data?
Well, of course, I would love it if other people were asking one-on-one.
I haven't, yeah.
And I would love to get opinions of the individuals versus like the hearsay. Because like Warren was saying, there's anywhere from 3 additional spaces to 180. It depends on the day. And, I think there's a lot of false information. And I think talking to people and going from them. And the listening session is this Saturday, correct?
Yep.
And you can just put that out there that we'll focus some of that time on this aspect, just so people's voices can be heard. Start with that. I just wanted to bring it up because like I said, there's been so much coming at me that I would love some advice and or feedback from others. Yeah.
Jerome, I'll talk to you after the meeting.
Okay. All right.
If you have a strategy of who you're talking to, and you have a plan, and you want to cut off part of that and hand it to me, I would be happy to help. I just don't want to duplicate efforts. I'm willing to help, so if you want to send me a population that you would like me to speak with, I'd be happy to do it. So,
Appreciate that. Okay. After that,
Well, I just like to say, the only thing I would request is that we give a timeline so they can have. These are changes, these will be changes to the construction contract, so expect change orders to go along with that. That will be part of the process, and obviously the final decision will have to be made before we get to strike.
right. Exactly. Okay. Thank you.
I would say a deadline quicker than that. I mean, that's.
Well, yes, but we're signing the contract now, so it's gonna be a change order no matter what.
Right, yeah, but just to professional respect that the sooner.
Yeah, so wait instead of that, yeah.
May is a more appropriate time for communication to a contract for that type of change.
All right. I would, one request that was brought to me, that I brought to Parks and Trails, and I thought I would just verbalize it. That the road, or the path, I should say, at the end of the dike, that when you turn up the property, is it the Millers? I'm trying to remember whose property with the hay fields. There are cars that are driving, especially for foreigners, I almost said foreigners. Tourists or out-of-state drivers are often using that path because it's a double path and they start to go up onto the dike. I know I have actually stopped people from driving on the dike at individuals, and people were wondering about adding what they call, I guess, a ballard. Is that what bollard? And if that's a possibility. So at some point I could talk to you, Mike, or I can Shannon, because you're more of the expert on that. But because it has become a road, and I think it's meant to be a path, and I don't know if there's some kind of need for people to access that, or some of the city trucks, or I don't know, or rec trucks to work on the fields, but I would love some feedback on that. Putting in maybe a block of some sort so people stop driving on the dike. And that's all I have. So, to the end of the meeting, and we actually did a good job of this. We flew through it. Yes. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
A motion for adjournment, and we have to vote.
Aye.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? This meeting of the City Commission of Livingston, Montana adjourns at 9:13. 14, 11, 9:11.